After years of secrecy, declassified files have finally come to light, revealing shocking new evidence about Flight 19's fate. Combined with groundbreaking research from Gian J. Quasar's book, They Flew into Oblivion, we've uncovered a startling reality. The official investigation got it all wrong. 3 critical clues were completely misinterpreted, leading investigators down a false path for over 75 years. In this video, we'll expose these game-changing oversights and reveal the true story of what happened to Flight 19. What you're about to learn will challenge everything you thought you knew about this infamous case. Are you ready to solve one of aviation's greatest mysteries once and for all?
It was somewhere on the second leg of the flight plan that Flight 19 showed the first signs of trouble.
Both my compasses are out, and I am trying to find Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I am over land, but it's broken. I'm sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down, and I don't know how to get to Fort Lauderdale.
There is a lot of speculation about how and why Lieutenant Taylor, a competent pilot with over 2,500 flying hours, got lost that December day. What we do know for certain is that he somehow got the flight out of the Bahama island chain and north into the open Atlantic Ocean. It was a simple triangular flight plan. Fly east to Bimini, then farther east to Grand Harbor Cay, then northwest to the island of Grand Bahama, then back to Fort Lauderdale. Lieutenant Taylor, without a functional compass, wristwatch, and poor visibility, thought that somehow he was in the Gulf of Mexico and west of the Florida Keys.
We will head northeast for 45 minutes. Then we will fly north to make sure we are not over the Gulf of Mexico.
This would be a good course of action if you were in the Gulf of Mexico, but disastrous in the open ocean north of the Bahamas. At approximately 5:30 p.m., an interesting power struggle is heard.
Damn it. If we just fly west, we would get home.
We will fly 270 degrees due west until we hit the beach or run out of gas.
A well-needed break finally comes in at 6 p.m. A radio fix out of Dinner Key, Florida places Flight 19 120 miles northeast of New Smyrna Beach. With the radio fix and the flight now heading due west and presumably back to the Florida coast, officers at Naval Air Station Fort Lauderdale assumed the drama was over. They had calculated Flight 19 would run out of fuel by 8 p.m. As the clock quickly burned away problems were mounting. Communication with the lost flight was not improving. Two-way communication was no longer possible, and air-sea rescue could only hear fading communication amongst the tense pilots. Adding to the anxiety, it was now well past sunset. Another Avenger pilot said of flying at night over the ocean is like flying in a jar of black ink. The cloud ceiling was now very low, obscuring any coastal lights or ships. Winds and turbulence would be adding to the disorientation of the pilots and constantly pushing them to the northeast. The last coherent message heard from Flight 19 was,
Powers, what course are we on now?
This is typically the point where the story of Flight 19 concludes. However, When examining the declassified documents from the investigation board, certain facts leap off the pages, potentially revealing the fate of Flight 19. The Board of Investigation found that officers and sailors generally agreed that based on the fuel capacity of a TBM Avenger, it would run out of fuel by 8 p.m. They conducted their search accordingly, prudently searching in the ocean and the Gulf around the whole peninsula of Florida. Questioning the board's finding of a 8 p.m. maximum endurance time, we looked in the Pilot's Operating Handbook, or POH in short, to find some answers. A TBM Avenger has a total fuel capacity of 325 gallons. With flaps and landing gear retracted, it can fly at 100 knots. At 125 knots and at sea level to 2,000 feet, a TBM Avenger will burn 46 gallons per hour, with a fuel capacity of 325 gallons that allows for 7 hours of airtime. That is 1 hour longer than the board's findings. This brings the endurance of Flight 19 1 hour longer, to 9 p.m. The endurance of Flight 19 could actually reasonably be longer, and when seconds count much longer. According to the POH, it shows that a TBM can fly as slow as 100 knots. At this speed, the fuel consumption would be at its maximum efficiency with a consumption rate of 36.8 gallons per hour. That would give a total airtime of 8 hours and 48 minutes. This is not to suggest that Flight 19 had a fuel endurance that would allow it to still be airborne at 11 p.m. However, it is reasonable to assume that Lieutenant Taylor would have throttled back to a very efficient fuel consumption rate at the first sign of trouble. If there was a reduction in fuel consumption, it is easy to surmise that this flight could have been airborne past 9 p.m. There is a clue in the radio transcript when Lieutenant Taylor said,
"We don't seem to be getting far."
Flight 19 had a quartering headwind of more than 40 knots, and if he had throttled back to 100 to 125 knots, this would give the flight a very low speed over the ground. Supporting the statement, "We don't seem to be getting far." This brings us to a second smoking gun in the Board of Investigation report. At 7:50 p.m., Air Sea Rescue received a report that the USS Solomons, an aircraft carrier off the coast of Jacksonville, picked up on radar a flight of 4 to 6 unidentified planes at 4,000 feet and traveling at 120 knots. This report was immediately dismissed by Air Sea Rescue, in part due to another report of a missing PBM Mariner rescue aircraft at approximately the same time. It's reasonable to surmise that this was actually Flight 19. The flight was probably above a cloud layer and thus could not see that they were now actually over land. Now for the third smoking gun in the Board of Investigation report, and potentially the final resting place of Flight 19. At 9:05 p.m., Air Sea Rescue received a report that 5 unidentified aircraft were picked up 45 degrees and 32 miles from Brunswick, Georgia, before they dropped off radar. This report was immediately dismissed by ASR because they assumed that the flight had ran out of fuel an hour earlier. This report would put the final resting place in the heart of the Okefenokee Swamp, a 438,000-acre, uninhabitable, prohibited swamp that straddles the Georgia-Florida border, loaded with alligators and snakes. The next day, December 6, 1945, would see the largest air-sea search and rescue operation ever mounted. Not a trace of wreckage was ever found of Flight 19. The Okefenokee Swamp was not part of the search and rescue mission. To this day, it has never been searched. The 14 men lost that day are all heroes and deserve to be found.